I am Telemachus, son of Odysseus, the man all of Greece knows as a legend after the Trojan War. We fought together there, my father and I, beneath the towering walls of that fabled city, where the Greeks besieged it for 10 years to reclaim Helen, the woman they say launched 1,000 ships. It was around 1200 BCE, or so the old sailors from Ithaca told me, survivors of the war who brought back tales that later became history. I was born in Ithaca, a small island in the Ionian Sea, just before my father was summoned to war by his oath to Agamemnon. My mother, Penelope, said he didn't want to leave us. He feigned madness, ploughing fields with salt instead of seed to avoid conscription, but they dragged him away regardless. I grew up on my mother's stories of him, his courage, his cunning, and how he always found a way to survive no matter how cruel fate was. But I didn't want to just hear about him. At 17, I slipped away from Ithaca, crossed the sea to find him, determined to stand by his side in the final days of the Trojan War. I reached Asia Minor, just as the war hit its fiercest point. My father had been there for 9 years, fighting alongside Achilles and Ajax under Agamemnon's command, a man my father called arrogant but indispensable to the Greek alliance. The first time I saw him was near a campfire in the army camp, his cloak torn, his sharp eyes piercing through me like he could see my soul. "Telemachus," he said, his voice hoarse but warm. "You shouldn't be here." I knelt, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Father, I've grown up, and I want to fight with you." He gave a rare smile amidst the war, and from then on, I stayed. I learned to wield a spear, shoot a bow, and listen to his plans. The pinnacle was when he devised the Trojan Horse. I was there as he sketched it in the sand, explaining how the giant wooden horse would hide Greek warriors inside. That night, I climbed into its belly with him and the others, waiting in stifling darkness as the Trojans hauled it into their city as a peace offering. When the gates opened, we poured out, setting Troy ablaze, ending a decade of war in a single night of fire and blood. I stood proud beside him, blood on my hands, knowing we'd made history together. After the victory, my father and I boarded a small wooden ship with our loyal crew from Ithaca, setting out for home. I was 18 now, a bit taller than him, with curly, dark brown hair and deep blue eyes like my mother's. He taught me to read the wind, navigate by the stars, and stay calm in a storm, lessons forged in war and years at sea. "You must always be ready, Telemachus," he'd say, his hand on my shoulder. "War has tempered us, but the sea and the gods will test us more." I nodded, believing that after everything, we deserved to return to Ithaca, where my mother waited with her loom and long nights of longing. But I didn't realize a warped reality awaited us, a world where space and time twist, where Poseidon, god of the sea, would hurl us into a strange place, thousands of years from home. That day, as we sailed across the Aegean Sea, the sky darkened without warning. I stood on the deck, gripping the ropes, watching thick black clouds gather, blotting out the sun. The wind howled, cold and fierce, whipping seawater into my face. "Father, something's wrong!" I shouted, trying to overpower the roaring gale. My father, hands on the helm, looked up at the sky, his eyes narrowing as if facing an old foe. "Poseidon," he muttered, his voice low but tense. "He hasn't forgiven me." I knew of Poseidon, the sea god with his mighty trident, who despised my father for blinding Polyphemus, his son. Father had told me about it during cold nights at Troy. He'd encountered the Cyclops on a distant island, tricked him by calling himself nobody, then blinded him with a sharpened, fire-hardened stake while he slept drunk. That act saved him and his crew, but it ignited Poseidon's eternal wrath, a vow that my father would never see Ithaca again, doomed to wander the seas until exhaustion or death claimed him under the god's domain. The waves rose like mountains, crashing against the ship's sides, making the wood creak as if it would splinter. My heart pounded, but I kept my eyes on my father. He stood firm on the deck, wet hair plastered to his forehead, his strong hands steadying the helm despite the ship's wild swaying. "Row harder, Telemachus," he commanded, his voice cutting through the waves' roar. I rushed to the oarsmen, 12 loyal men who'd fought with us at Troy, and joined them, my hands burning as we fought the water's resistance. Then I saw it. Amid the storm, a massive whirlpool appeared, shimmering with strange light, unlike any natural vortex my father had described. "Father, what is that?" I asked, my voice trembling not from fear, but from sensing something beyond my understanding. He stared at the whirlpool, a flicker of realization in his eyes. "Poseidon's up to something," he said. "This isn't just a storm. It's a gateway he's using to punish us." I'd heard my father speak of mysterious sea zones where ships vanished without a trace, tales whispered by sailors at Troy, calling them the waters of the gods. Later, I learned they're called the Bermuda Triangle, but in our time, they were just vague warnings. For my father, who'd faced Cyclops, Sirens, and Scylla, nothing was impossible. "Row into it," he shouted, pointing at the whirlpool. "But father—" I started to protest, but his gaze silenced me. "If we avoid it, it'll swallow us. Facing it is our only chance, Telemachus." "But father—" I started to protest, but his gaze silenced me. "If we avoid it, it'll swallow us. Facing it is our only chance, Telemachus." I nodded, trusting him as always. And with the crew, we threw all our strength into driving the ship toward the vortex. As the prow hit it, a blinding light erupted, accompanied by a roar like the earth splitting apart. I clung to the ropes, feeling as if we were being pulled through an unseen portal, and then everything vanished. When I opened my eyes, the sound of waves was gone. A scorching wind blew past, carrying fine sand that stung my face. I lay on dry, cracked ground, coughing as sand clogged my throat. "Father!" I called, my voice hoarse, groping around. He lay beside me, slowly sitting up, his sharp eyes scanning our surroundings. "We're alive," he said, his tone deep and steady. I looked around. No water, no ship, just endless golden sand under a blazing sun. A few surviving crewmen groaned near the scattered wreckage of our vessel, strewn across the dunes. "Where are we, Father?" I asked, shielding my eyes from the glare. He stood, gazing into the distance. "I don't know," he replied. "Poseidon has thrown us somewhere strange. No sea, no sign of Ithaca. But we'll figure it out and survive, like we did at Troy." We had no idea where we were or who anyone might be. The ground beneath us was parched, unlike any coast we'd ever seen. My father signaled us to move toward a small oasis, a few odd trees sparsely clustered around a shallow pool, a rare patch of green amid the sand. "Hide behind the rocks," he whispered, gripping a broken spear from the ship. I nodded, but then I heard the distant thunder of hooves and a panicked cry. Peering through a gap in the rocks, I saw a small figure running toward us, pursued by a group of horsemen in leather armor, wielding curved bows, warriors unlike any I'd encountered in Greece or Asia Minor. It was a girl, her cloak torn, long black hair tangled, yet she carried an air of nobility despite her flight. She stumbled and fell as they cornered her against a low hill near the oasis, an arrow grazing her shoulder, drawing a pained groan. The courage I'd honed at Troy surged within me. "Father, I have to help her," I whispered, pulling my short bow from the ship's wreckage. "Telemachus, wait!" he shouted, but I was already out, loosing 2 arrows that struck 2 riders, one in the chest, the other through the throat. I grabbed the girl and pulled her into a small cave, hiding behind desert rocks. My father and the crew hurled stones from above, forcing the horsemen to retreat temporarily. Inside the cave, I supported her as she sat, my hands trembling as I saw blood seeping from her shoulder. "Who are you?" she whispered in a strange tongue, her voice faint but resolute. I gave a small smile, placing a hand on my chest. "Telemachus, Ithaca." She touched my hand, her voice soft. "Terken, Khwarezm." I didn't understand her words, but her eyes spoke volumes, gratitude and a spark of hope amid despair. My father appeared at the cave entrance, looking at me and the girl, his voice low. "We've saved her, Telemachus. But those enemies will return, and she might know where we are." Terken, through broken phrases and gestures, shared her story. She was a princess of Khwarezm, a kingdom we'd never heard of. Her father, King Muhammad, had provoked a mighty foe named Genghis Khan, a name that echoed with power, though we had no idea who he was. She'd fled the city of Samarkand when it was besieged, carrying a royal jade ring to seek allies, but was hunted across this desert. My father listened, piecing it together, his expression shifting to realization. "We're no longer in our time. This is the future, thousands of years beyond Troy. Poseidon has cast us into a warped reality. Only then did I grasp where we'd landed. The Gobi Desert, 1219 CE, a time over 1,000 years beyond our own. The Gobi Desert, stretching across southern Mongolia and northern China, is a harsh land of golden sand, fierce dust storms, and unpredictable temperatures. This was the domain Genghis Khan, the great conqueror, used as a springboard to expand his empire. Genghis Khan, born Temujin in 1162 near the Onan River in the Mongolian steppe, grew up amid tribal warfare, losing his father young and fighting to protect his mother and siblings. Over decades, he vanquished rivals like Jamukha, once a close friend turned foe, and united the Mongol tribes. In 1206, at a grand assembly called the Kurultai, he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, universal ruler, marking the birth of the Mongol Empire, a force that reshaped world history. By 1219, when we appeared in the Gobi Desert, Genghis Khan had launched his campaign against the Khwarezm Empire, a powerful Islamic kingdom in Central Asia spanning modern-day Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and parts of Kazakhstan. The war stemmed from an incident in 1218. The Khwarezm king, Ala ad-Din Muhammad II, ordered the execution of Genghis Khan's trade envoys at Otrar and seized their caravan. To Genghis Khan, this was a declaration of war. He amassed an army of 150,000 to 200,000, swift cavalry, expert archers, and siege engineers trained by the Jin dynasty, to raise Khwarezm. From 1219 to 1221, cities like Samarkand, Bukhara, and Urgench fell to the Mongols in brutal sieges, their populations slaughtered or enslaved. The Khwarezm royal family shattered. Genghis Khan relied not just on might, but on strategy. He used the cavalry's speed for rapid encirclements, severed enemy supply lines, and spread terror through calculated massacres, like burning Bukhara in full view of its people. At Samarkand, he feigned retreats to lure Khwarezm forces into open battles, then crushed them. Muhammad II ruled a vast empire, but his arrogance and disunity among his generals led to defeat. When we arrived, Samarkand had just fallen, and the Mongols were hunting down the royal remnants, including Terken, daughter of Muhammad II, the one we'd just rescued. Odysseus stood in silence, watching Terken trace burning cities into the sand with her finger. He now understood they had crossed not only the sea, but time.